In a world of online business and business as a whole, we are constantly told to remove friction from the customer journey, streamlining the processes, making things as easy and quick as possible, and reduce any obstacles that might hinder a customer from making a purchase. It is sound advice, and it becomes an essential tenet of modern marketing and user experience design. But sometimes you have to get creative and flip it on its head, because what if friction, that thing we've all been trying to eliminate, could actually be used to strategically boost your sales and retention? Friction is typically seen as the number one enemy. It's often portrayed as something that slows down the customer journey, impedes progress, and leads to abandoned carts or lost opportunities. And we are taught to minimize friction wherever possible, whether it's by speeding up the checkout, offering easy payment options, or simplifying the onboarding process. But what if friction could be used to deliberately increase sales, encouraging better decision making, and even drive customer loyalty? Because while removing friction is crucial for optimizing ease and accessibility, there are certain circumstances where introducing a controlled amount of friction can create psychological triggers that benefit both your customers and your brand. Because think about the last time you were in a store or browsing something online and something just seemed a little bit too easy. Maybe the checkout was a breeze, or the decision to purchase was almost effortless. And while this can feel like a win in the short term, it can sometimes result in buyer's remorse or less satisfaction in the long run. And friction, when used wisely, can counteract this and can encourage customers to feel more committed to their decisions and help them think through their choices more thoroughly, resulting in a greater sense of satisfaction and higher retention rates in the future. But this friction should never be excessive, as too much of it can drive customers away. And that's why it is important to understand how to use it in moderation. Adding small amounts of friction, like requiring customers to fill out a simple form before they can access a discount, or introducing deliberate waiting periods to create anticipation, can all lead to greater investment in decision-making processes. And if you want to know how to make the most of these waiting periods, check the video on the screen right now. When we talk about friction in the customer journey, it's crucial to remember that it's not just about adding or removing barriers, but timing and placement matters just as much, if not even more. And understanding the when and the where you introduce friction can make all the difference between boosting engagement and alienating potential customers. And now imagine that you're a business owner looking to introduce friction strategically. The important key here is understanding that not all friction is bad, but where and when it's introduced matters immensely. But the trick is in identifying the right moments in the process to introduce it without overburdening the customer, because too much friction at the wrong time will ruin the entire customer journey. And this is why strategic friction should be an enterprise level decision, because the goal here isn't to create unnecessary hurdles, but to nudge the customer and encourage them to go in the right direction at each key touch point, where that small bit of extra effort can lead to a greater return, whether it's increased engagement, higher conversion rates, or greater retention. So you can only learn from the real life giants. So IKEA's store layout is a masterclass of how strategic friction can be used to increase customer engagement and ultimately sales. Because at first glance, the maze-like design of IKEA might seem a bit confusing and even frustrating, but the twists, the turns, and what seems as endless rows of displays give the store a labyrinthian feel. Yet, by the end of the journey, your cart will always be full, or there will always be something in there, and you'll likely find out that you've bought more than you initially planned to. And Kia does this strategically. They don't create confusion just for the sake of it. Their store is laid out deliberately to introduce friction in a way that exposes customers to more stimuli, which drives impulsive purchases. And the layout is structured to make sure the customers are deliberately slowed down, but not in a way that feels obtrusive or frustrating, because this isn't about creating a chaotic shopping experience, about buying more here, more there, more there, more there, but it's about creating a strategic journey that exposes customers to products they may not have otherwise noticed. And it's all about exposing customers to more items. And where do they specifically add the friction zones in this experience? It's in the activity areas, which are intentionally placed in high traffic zones of the store, usually in the middle of a section of a department where customers might normally rush through without stopping. And these areas are designed to slow you down, but in a way that doesn't feel like an inconvenience, but instead they introduce you to a seasonal product, in a way that catches your eye. And it's these added friction areas that prevent customers from rushing throughout the store without considering new products. And these small deliberate barriers force you to pause and consider items you might have otherwise ignored. And you might be thinking, but does this backfire? And it's all about balance. While the company introduces friction to encourage exploration and impulse buying, they never compromise on the customer's comfort or mobility, as the store is carefully planned, with clear directional signs, predictable pathways, and wide aisles that allow customers to easily navigate the store, even in the busiest section. So the friction is subtle, never overwhelming, and supports the overall shopping experience. And you can apply this so easy to e-com, for example. These same principles of strategic friction can be applied to boost engagement and drive sales, but require a thoughtful approach that aligns with the digital environment. So, for example, you can intentionally delay this shopping journey. Just like IKEA slows down customers, twists and turns, you can create intentional delays in the online shopping journey by, for example, using well-placed products recommendation carousels on the product page that can gently nudge customers towards an item they might not have initially considered. This friction here is not frustrating. It's seemingly providing additional choices that may resonate with the customer's current needs and supplement their entire shopping experience. You can also upsell and cross-sell when a customer is about to check out. You can introduce friction that can ultimately increase the cart size by introducing recommended products or bundle offers during the checkout. But you can also create an exploration process where customers are encouraged to browse different categories before making a purchase. This could be achieved through gamified elements, or you can incentivize their discovery journey. Think of it like the activity areas that we just spoke about in IKEA. The online equivalent could be interactive features that expose the customer to more product. And then you can also, and last example for now, would be something to do with checkouts and registration points, because a little friction during checkout can also work to your advantage if done correctly. Because whilst one-click checkouts are incredibly convenient and speed up the entire process, adding a step like creating an account or requesting more information about the product can increase retention and build customer loyalty in the long term, whilst increasing that perception that the item is already theirs because they've put in more effort into the journey. But it's important to always provide a way out, because the last thing you want is for them to abandon the cart. But the most important idea, just like IKEA's friction strategy, is to find the balance, because adding just enough friction to engage and expose customers to more product without overwhelming them is the goal. You have to understand where to introduce and what role it should play in the customer journey. So take, for instance, a subscription service where customers are given a choice between monthly and yearly subscriptions, and the next step in the funnel offers a selection of additional services like an upsell that customers could opt into. And in the original setup, customers who are not interested in any extra services could simply skip this entire process without any engagement. And while this streamlined the process, it also meant that customers were bypassing potential lucrative upselling opportunities that they may have been interested in if they just spent more time investigating them. So by adding an extra step adds friction to help you direct your customers' attention towards an option or a feature that otherwise would have gone unnoticed. So to make sure that the upsells didn't go through the cracks, a subtle yet impactful change would be to, instead of just allowing customers to skip entirely, they at least need to be required to ponder on their options. And as I said, they always need a way out. So there would be an option saying no additional services. But this adds that small requirement that they have to ponder on these options, and even if they choose the no additional service, this small yet deliberate addition of friction ensured that the customers took a moment to think about the options presented to them, which they may have otherwise overlooked, and might capitalize on the future whenever they need that product, because now they know that you offer it to them. So the key point here is that friction can be used to focus attention on particular product features and drive sales without disrupting the overall user experience. And the success of this lies in the ability to force engagement without creating unnecessary barriers, because when customers are simply allowed to skip a step, they quickly pass over options without considering them. But when this small step of friction is introduced of a mandatory choice, customers are required to engage and evaluate the available options. And this moment of consideration often leads to a high likelihood of purchasing something they might have ignored, because we are introducing this friction at an early stage of the funnel, where customers are still relatively open to exploring their options. But then there's the other side, where introducing friction too late in the process, especially at the checkout stage, could risk in just simply increasing their frustration because they are eager to complete the purchase. So the key takeaway here is that friction doesn't have to be a roadblock. It can be a redirectional tool that channels customers towards a specific choice. So the goal here is not to overwhelm or frustrate the customer, but rather to create a moment where they stop and think, where they are given a chance to consider an option they might have otherwise ignored. And what about when it comes to retaining customers? Well, in times of uncertainty or emotional decision making, friction can be a powerful tool to slow down the customer, allowing them to reconsider their choice more carefully. Because when faced with unexpected life events, such as financial strain, people can often make impulsive decisions. They may act out fear, anxiety, or simply lack the information they need to make a well-informed choice. And it's these moments that a bit of friction can be the difference between a quick and impulsive decision and a more thoughtful one. So for example, let's say there is a bank that truly cares for its customers, with their interest at heart. And this bank, like many institutions, has to adjust quickly to a new reality when a country goes into a lockdown for some reason, and thousands of customers find themselves suddenly without income. And the government introduces a new law allowing mortgage and loan payments to be postponed for up to 9 months. And while this provides an immediate relief for many, the catch is that the postponed payments would still accrue interest, and the extension would be non-extendable. And in short, it wasn't a simple decision. It requires careful consideration about the future. So the bank's challenge was to manage this sudden surge of requests while ensuring that only those who genuinely needed the extension would apply for it. And the initial process was seamless. Clients could apply for the postponement through their online banking system with just a few clicks. However, streamlining that process in this context backfired. Given the complexity of the decision and the uncertainty of the reason for the lockdown, the bank realised that adding a bit of friction might encourage customers to pause and reflect on whether they truly needed the extension or whether it was better to wait. And making that process a little bit more difficult would be useful to slow the customer down and redirect their attention to what you want them to do, which gives you an opportunity to inform them, to upsell, to retain them on whatever your goal is. And so this bank, to introduce friction, took several steps to make the process more deliberate, because instead of an automatic one-click request, the process was broken down into multiple steps, each requiring more thoughtful engagement. And a checklist was introduced so customers could even begin the application process, forcing them to evaluate their situation and think about the implications of their decisions. And simply, at every step, the customers were asked to confirm that they have read and understood the key information. And this simple action forced customers to pause and reflect, giving them more time to reconsider the options. And what's interesting about this approach is that the friction wasn't just about making the process frustrating or confusing, but the main goal, rather, is about creating a space for reflection. The goal wasn't to prevent customers from taking action, but to ensure that they took their time to make an informed and improved decision. And by adding a few extra steps and highlighting the potential future consequences of their choices, you can help to shape the way customer thinks about your brand. So let's say your customer is on the brink of cancelling a service or leaving due to an emotional decision, such as financial stress or simply dissatisfaction with your service. And by introducing this friction in a way that encourages reflection, you can turn a moment of impulsive decision making into an opportunity for engagement and retention. And this friction doesn't need to be severe, but it just needs to be enough to make the customer pause, reconsider and reassess their situation. And on top of this, you can also use this friction to provide valuable information and alternative solutions that they may have not considered initially, whether it's offering a payment plan, highlighting benefits they may have overlooked, or reinforcing the value of the service. The goal is to nudge the customer back into the fold by making them think about their choice more carefully. And while introducing friction into sales and retention can be very powerful to redirect customers' attention and slow down their decision making, it's crucial to strike the right balance, because think of it as a pinch of salt, not a cup. Just too much salt can ruin a dish, and excessive friction can sour the customer experience. And if you make the process unnecessarily complicated, the customers will feel frustrated and the perception of your brand will decrease significantly. Why? Because customer perception of your brand is directly linked with the ease and the transparency of their interaction with your business. The goal is to enhance the sales and retention by introducing small and deliberate barriers that encourage reflection without frustrating the customer. So, are you ready to apply this to your own customer journey? Check out this video on how you can begin on making an addictive funnel that has people running back to you with their inner circle. Check out the links below, but most importantly, thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and I hope you have a great day.